Hi, welcome to SBR TV. I'm Peter Loshak. This is our NFL Experts Roundtable for Week 15. As you can see, I'm not in the studio. I'm in New York right now, which means that we're calling in remotely. I don't have Pinnacle right now. I don't have Matchbook. I don't have a lot of books right now, but I can still bet, and we're going to still do a roundtable. We've got Scott Kellen from SixCentSports.com calling in as our guest this week. Scott, how you doing?
Hey, very good, Peter. Thanks for having me.
All right, great. The first game we're going to talk about 4 games, all of them very interesting lines. I'm very interested to see what you have to say about them. But the first one you picked, and you obviously picked it for a reason, Carolina at Houston. Now, Houston, of course, probably the most impressive team at the moment in the NFL. You know, they were like, can they do it, with running and defense despite the fact that they're not going to have a passing game? The answer is yes, and they have a passing game now. TJ Yates passed for 300 yards last weekend. He's passing great. Carolina, they're faltering. They're beating bad teams, but kind of getting crushed by everyone else. So I'm looking at this saying Houston -6. That's kind of a no-brainer, kind of an obvious play. The only thing that makes me nervous is maybe like taking a team that's won 7 in a row like Houston has as a favorite like this. Do they have the motivation to get the win here? I don't know. Tell us what you think about this line.
Yeah, well, maybe you've just summed it all up for me. I like Houston in the game. I think the game's a no-brainer. I make the line Houston by about 10. Now, obviously, that factors in year-to-date stats, so it's got some match job stuff in there. But, TJ Yates, he seems to be a decent player. He's got a nice arm, and as long as he doesn't make too many mistakes, Houston should be okay in most of these games. And he shouldn't have to be put into a situation where, that maybe Carolina can force him into a lot of mistakes because the Carolina defense isn't very good. Houston should be able to run the ball here and also control the game with their defense as well, which is obviously very good. And Carolina's been a nice team this year. They got a lot of offense, so they're kind of fun to watch, but they're 2-4 straight up on the road. Their only wins on the road are against Tampa and Indianapolis. Tampa Bay is in a complete funk now. Indianapolis, as we all know, is horrible. And against, decent teams this year, they've lost by 7, 5, 14, and 14. They've allowed at least 31 to the 3 good teams that they've played, Atlanta, Chicago, Detroit. So that doesn't bode well for them on the road. Houston, meanwhile, has won every home game by at least 7, except for the game that they lost to Oakland. And Houston qualifies in a 51-10-1 situation. It's actually really more of a play against Carolina based on their poor defense at home last week. It's a late-season situation that's performed very well over the years. So we got line value with Houston. We've got a situation that's very strong that plays in Houston. And then we look at Carolina with a bad defense going on the road, playing a team with a good defense, even though Yates is the quarterback. The running game for Houston and the defense should be able to give enough to win this game. And we're laying a cheap price in my mind, being that it's under a touchdown.
All right, yeah, no, I agree with everything you said. My only question, whenever I see a line like this that seems like obviously a little bit off, that I love to bet it, I don't really question myself, but I always try to answer the question, well, why then is this line just -6? Why is it lower? And I usually like to have an answer for that to make me even more confident in the play. Why do you think this line is just -6?
I think it's lower maybe for a couple reasons. It's still TJ Yates, so there's some issues there. I guess if you make this thing 7.5, something like that, maybe or anything over a touchdown. Carolina has a decent offense. Maybe they have the ability to backdoor that line with that kind of a number. And you got Andre Johnson not playing, so obviously that hurts them a little bit. But again, based on this matchup, I think they can get by without Andre Johnson in this game. I think those are probably some of the reasons that you see it being a little bit lower than what most people probably believe it should be.
Yeah, and I guess my other thing is just anytime you see an NFL team that's won a bunch of games in a row and then they're coming in as a favorite, I kind of tend to get less and less likely to bet on them because, things just like turn around in the NFL. But I guess you don't see this as one of those games where that's likely to happen. You see an 8th win in a row.
Yeah, I think so because the two things that are pretty constant if you play with these abilities, and that's to run the ball and play good defense. Those things tend to show up almost every week for a team. Passing games, things can happen. You can have tip balls and stuff like that. But defenses usually come to play every week when you've got a good defense, or don't come to play when you have a bad defense. And then the ability to run the game, that's a little bit simpler than throwing the ball, I think. So those are two constants that I think will show up all the time for them. And again, their opponent this week in Carolina having a bad defense isn't something that can back Houston into a corner here where they need to really start relying on TJ Yates. And play action is probably going to work just fine for them in this game because, again, they should be able to run the ball. So I don't see any issues with that at all.
Okay, I'm convinced. I'm sold. I'm going to bet it at Bookmaker or DSI.